Well, over the weekend, the Institute of Public Affairs put out some concerning statistics to do with free speech at our universities. When I think of an Australian university campus life, and I remember mine very well when I wasn't drunk and playing the fool, I think of all the opportunities to learn what you don't know, to broaden your outlook, speak your mind if you like, develop your voice. Unfortunately, it seems my vision of what a university campus should encourage is not the reality. In the IPA's survey, disturbingly, 59% of university students surveyed said other students were preventing them and their peers from voicing opinions on a range of issues, while 31.4% said they had been made to feel uncomfortable by a university lecturer for expressing their opinion. Concerning statistics for sure, at a time when our universities should be encouraging free speech. Joining me now to go through these findings is National Manager of the IPA's youth program called Generation Liberty, and that's Renee Gorman. Renee, thank you for your time tonight. 500 students in your survey. I read out a couple of the key findings there, but what was the top line, a sense of this survey for you? What did you find illuminating?
I think more than anything, this survey really highlights a disconnect between what university chancellors are saying that's happening at university and what students are actually experiencing. And what's one of the reasons I really wanted to push forward with this research, because as someone who was a student in the past who had, gone through censorship, I was so frustrated seeing university chancellors and administrators and bureaucrats go out and say, there's no free speech crisis on campus. Because I kept thinking, from what authority do you say this from? Because you're not speaking to students, obviously. Have you ever heard of a vice-chancellor going and meeting with a student group who had had an event shut down or radically protested? It just doesn't happen. So I think that's one of the main findings here is no matter what bureaucrats or government people say that there's no free speech crisis, the students seem to think there is. And if anything, their opinion matters more than anyone else's because they're the ones who have to experience it.
It's so true. Often, and I say this to myself, when I think back at university, I come from a position of nostalgia, my own experience, not the lived experience of students today. And I think that's probably where most academics and commentators come from. But what I found interesting in your survey, right across the board, it didn't matter what their politics were, declared politics of the students, all of them, Greens, Liberals, coalition supporters and others, all of them said they don't think that there is an opportunity for free speech on the university campus. That's the majority view, and 58% of them, again, of all politics here, said they feel they get more opportunity to express an honest opinion on social media than they do on the university campus. Now, what can we do to turn this around?
Yeah, those social media findings, I think, are also a real indictment because universities are failing to provide this arena for students to be able to debate ideas and discuss different issues. Students are leaning to social media. And the other thing that we unearthed in this study is that students want free speech. With the statement, at university, you should be exposed to all different views, even if those views are challenging or offensive. 82% of students agreed and only 2% of students disagreed. So when you see events getting shut down, that's only 2% of radical students, which university administrators seem to be caving to much too often. But as far as turning this ship around, I think, first of all, the universities have to admit there's a problem. Because how are you going to solve an issue if you don't think it exists? Even after they said that they are going to take on the recommendations of the French Model Code, they're still saying there isn't a problem. So I'm very suspicious that they are actually going to be able to solve it if they refuse to admit it exists. And also, if they refuse to admit it exists, they're not going to be able to understand the mechanics of how censorship on campus works. And also, this has to come back to funding. These institutions receive billions of taxpayers' dollars. So in the future, I think there really needs to be a question of, if you are not going to uphold free speech, which is a pillar of our democracy, a pillar of Western civilization, it's what we built this country around, then your funding should be questioned because that's the only way that university vice-chancellors and administrators are going to pay attention.
Renee, those statistics that you just quoted there, and I want to reinforce them, where students themselves are saying we want to be exposed to contentious issues. 86% of students who vote Green said they do. 86%, 82% Labor, 82% Coalition. Rarely, and I've looked at plenty of polls, do you see polls that hit sort of the 80s in any sort of research pattern. Do you think that young people are going to start to take back their universities on the back of results like this?
Well, there is a groundswell and a rebellion that I feel has been coming for a very long time. I don't think students are just going to lay down and accept this censorship and accept being told what to do and what to say. I don't think that's in young people's nature, and it's never been in young people's nature. As far as has been bipartisan across political spectrums, which was really interesting. But the big gaps we saw in the survey were actually between girls and boys. So if you see at the beginning, you stated the fact that 31% of students have said that they were made to feel uncomfortable by a teacher in the classroom for expressing an opinion. If you compare that between male and female students, 44% of male students said that happened, compared to only 23% of female students. So I think that uncovers how our university system is really failing male students right now. And that's really detrimental to the future of the country, I think.
Renee Gorman, thank you, and thank you to the IPA tonight for that sort of survey to be put out there publicly and have a debate. And I'll welcome you back any time if you think the tide's turning on the campus, and all strength to your arm. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.